The young men were running, their eyes filled with fear as the alligators in the pool thrashed violently, snapping their powerful jaws around the big piece of meat the king had thrown. That's when we all heard it, a loud, unmistakable splash that made our hearts freeze in our chests. Everything changed in that moment. It all happened in Ahanta, a vibrant township ruled by King Eze Ikedi. He was a wise ruler, beloved by his people, and he had only one child, his precious daughter, the princess. King Eze Ikedi loved her more than anything in the world and was determined to find the perfect man to marry her, someone brave, someone worthy of not only his daughter, but his kingdom too. So, when the time came for her to marry, the king made an unusual announcement. To all the young men of Ahanta and neighboring towns, whoever can swim from one end of my palace pool to the other shall marry my daughter and inherit my wealth and kingdom. News of the challenge spread like wildfire. In the market squares, people whispered in excitement. In the neighboring towns, young men gathered to discuss their plans. Many began to practice their swimming, determined to make an impression on the king. Others thought they could charm the princess with their other talents, cooking, dancing, and singing. The excitement for the big day grew with each passing moment. Finally, the day arrived, and the palace grounds were overflowing with young men, their families, everyone from Ahanta and other neighboring towns. Colourful canopies were set up, and the air was electric with a mix of excitement and anxiety. The king stood before the crowd, his royal robes flowing, his eyes sharp as he scanned the sea of eager faces. "Welcome, young men," King Eze Ikedi declared, his voice booming across the courtyard. "You may showcase your talents if you wish, but remember, only the one who swims across the pool shall win my daughter's hand." The young men cheered, confident smiles on their faces. They believed it would be easy. After all, how hard could swimming be? One by one, they danced, they sang, they showcased their best skills. The crowd clapped, laughter echoed, and the atmosphere was light and joyful. But then, the moment of truth came. The king raised his hand, silencing the crowd. He walked to the edge of the palace pool and with a slight grin, he threw a massive piece of raw meat into the water. What happened next left everyone stunned. The water erupted as alligators, hidden beneath the surface, lunged for the meat, their powerful jaws snapping shut with bone-chilling force. The young men stared at the pool, their confidence vanishing, replaced by sheer terror. Their faces turned pale, and a murmur spread through the crowd. The brave expressions they had worn moments before had melted into fear. The king looked at them and said, "Only those with true courage will marry my daughter." His words hung heavy in the air. The young men shuffled their feet, exchanging nervous glances. Some began muttering, calling the king cruel and unfair. They turned to leave, disappointed and angry. Just as people were about to give up on the challenge entirely and make their way out of the king's palace, a loud splash echoed through the palace grounds. Heads turned sharply, eyes widened in shock. There, in the pool, a young man was thrashing through the water, his arms moving in powerful strokes. The crowd collectively gasped, and then a roar of excitement erupted. "Who is he?" people asked, craning their necks to see better. "Swim! Swim faster!" others shouted, their voices blending into a cacophony of desperation and hope. The young man's muscles strained, his face contorted in fear and determination as he cut through the water. The alligators moved swiftly, their dark bodies gliding closer. The crowd watched, some covering their eyes, others clenching their fists, their hearts pounding. The young man kicked harder, pushing himself to the limit. Every second felt like an eternity. The tension was unbearable. The young man's eyes were wide with terror, but he kept going, refusing to give in. Finally, with a powerful final kick, he reached the edge of the pool, pulling himself out just as an alligator's jaws snapped shut inches behind him. He collapsed onto the ground panting, his body shaking from exhaustion. The crowd erupted in cheers, people jumping up and down, their faces alight with amazement. But the young man, he wasn't celebrating. He was furious. Who pushed me? He shouted, his voice hoarse. He looked around, his eyes searching the crowd, his face flushed with anger. Who pushed me into that pool? The king's aides rushed to his side, trying to calm him. One of them, an older man with kind eyes, placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "Young man, do not worry about who pushed you. What matters is that you made it. You were brave. You have won the princess's hand and the kingdom." The young man looked at him, still breathing heavily, his heart pounding in his chest. He was overwhelmed, not just by the danger he had faced, but by the realization that he had done something incredible. He had faced his greatest fear, and now he was standing on the other side, victorious. Slowly, a smile spread across his face. The crowd roared louder, chanting his name. The king approached, his face beaming with pride. He raised the young man's hand in the air and declared, "Behold, the future king of Ahanta." The young man glanced at the princess, who stood nearby, her eyes filled with admiration. She smiled at him, and he felt a warmth spread through him, a feeling of belonging and acceptance that he had never felt before. He had come here today to watch, maybe to impress the king a little, but now he was leaving with a bride and a kingdom. Later, as the celebrations began, the young man finally sat down to catch his breath. He looked around at the joyful faces, the people congratulating him, the princess smiling at him, and he whispered to himself, "Maybe that push was the best thing that ever happened to me." From that day on, he was known not just as the man who married the princess, but as the man who found his courage when it mattered most. And though he never found out who had pushed him, he was forever grateful for that unexpected shove, the shove that changed his life, the shove that made him a hero. The township of Ahanta never forgot that day. It became a story told to children, a lesson shared in the market squares, that sometimes life pushes you in ways you do not expect, and sometimes that push leads you to greatness. Morals of the story. 1. Courage comes from adversity. Often, it takes a challenging situation or unexpected push to discover one's true courage. Embracing challenges can lead to personal growth and achievement. 2. Embrace the unknown. The unknown can be intimidating, but facing fears can lead to life-changing experiences. Sometimes, what seems like a setback can be a setup for greater success. 3. Value of community support. The collective encouragement from the villagers demonstrates the importance of community. Support from those around us can provide the strength needed to overcome obstacles. 4. True strength is not always physical. The young man's ability to confront his fears and swim across the pool highlights that true strength often lies in mental and emotional resilience rather than just physical prowess. Thanks for watching. Did you enjoy the video? Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more. Drop a comment and share your thoughts. See you next time.